Previously, Sayadaw explained that letting one's mind go freely on the misconduct, one is said to be failing, being negligent on responsibility as a human, and it is called Paṇḍitā, which is a gross form of Paṇḍitā. So if one can control one's mind so that the mind will not be going onto the misconduct, then one will not be failing human responsibility. So it is called Paṇḍitā. This is gross form of Paṇḍitā. And if one lets one's mind go freely on sensual objects, it is called Paṇḍitā, and it is medium form of Paṇḍitā. If one can control one's mind systematically in a correct way, so that his or her mind will not go onto these sensual objects, it is called Paṇḍitā. It is medium form of Paṇḍitā. So by now the audience must have understood gross form of Paṇḍitā and Paṇḍitā, and medium form of Paṇḍitā and Paṇḍitā. So today Sayadaw will explain on refined form of Paṇḍitā and Paṇḍitā according to the guidance of the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. So previously it is said that misconduct should be refrained. One should refrain from misconduct, and one should also be mindful so that she will be austere in sensual objects. So that one needs to have control on oneself, so one needs mindfulness. But such kind of mindfulness, in order to refrain from misconduct and in order to stay in austerity from these sensual objects, so this kind of Paṇḍitā cannot be used in order to uproot the refined form of unwholesomeness. It cannot be used to uproot the unwholesome roots or unwholesome latent or dormant ones. So unwholesome roots could only be uprooted if one goes on to practice preventing, curing. So these unwholesome roots could only be uprooted with knowledge. So only by knowledge these unwholesome roots can be uprooted. So in Vibhanga Pali, it is mentioned as Kusalana va Dhammana Bhavanaya Asatata Kriyata, and so on. So today, Sayadaw will explain what is wholesomeness. So most people understand kusala as wholesomeness, but Sayadaw will explain what is kusala. And also Sayadaw will explain how this wholesomeness could be developed. So it is said that if one does not develop kusala dhamma, then it will be paṇḍitā, negligence, failure, or heedlessness. by developing kusala dhamma, it will be opposite of pamada, and instead there will be apamada if one develops kusala dhamma. So first of all, Sayadaw explained what is kusala dhamma. So kusala dhamma can be translated as wholesome deed, wholesomeness, and most of the people understand this kusala dhamma as good deed or wholesome deed. But the nature of kusala, the nature which is the cause of this kusala, is explained as anavajja. Anavajja means being free from blame. So it means that kusala are the deeds which are blameless, which are not disgusting or detestable. So the things that are not blameworthy, the things that are not detestable or disgusting, in Pali it is called anavajja. So these are called kusala in Pali. So kusala means things that are not blameworthy or blameful. So in the world of being, especially in the world of humans, one will want for oneself and one's own family to be well, to prosper. So one wants to be educated, want to have good job, and also want to earn good living, want to have high standard of life. So wanting for such things, everyone has this kind of wanting for such things as good education, good job, good earning, good standard of life, and so on. So such kind of wanting, if it is not too extreme, if it is not too extreme that it can hurt others, so if it is not this extreme kind of greed, then it is not so bad, and people do not blame him or her. But in the Dhamma field, these wantings, these kind of greed are blameworthy and detestable. And if one sees undesirable things, then there will be hatred, aversion. So if one has hatred or aversion, but if this doesn't go on to hurt others, then it is not so bad. But this kind of hatred, aversion is blameworthy in the Dhamma field. And also, if one does not know what is beneficial or not, what is suitable or not, if there is simple knowing of these benefits or suitable, if one is not hurting others, it is just simple kind of delusion, and she will not be punished by law because she is not hurting others, but she has this delusion in his or her mind only. It doesn't go on to transgression by body and speech, so it is not so bad. But the mental, because they are staying in the mind, they are staying as latent or dormant form. So it may not be so bad, but actually in the Dhamma field, these kind of delusions are also blameworthy and detestable. And also the kind of delusions that can arise in the mind, such as conceit, envy, and jealousy, if they arise only in the mind, if one doesn't go on to transgress by body and speech, it is not so bad compared to transgression. So what is bad is that with selfishness and with, if one is so selfish, if one is extremely greedy, then people will blame him or her. How can she be so selfish, looking or seeking only for his or her benefit only? So when this kind of extreme greed takes place, then his or her reputation will go down. And if the person go on to transgress by body and speech based on the extreme kind of greed, then this kind of greed is very gross and rude. And if there is dissatisfaction, anger, or hatred that arises in the mind only, it is not so bad. But if one is keeping grudge, and if one is thinking that if I have any chance, then I will destroy him, or I will teach him or her a lesson. So if this happens, then this kind of greed, this kind of anger will hurt others, and it is very bad in reputation. And the kind of delusion, not knowing that good things will bring good results, bad things will bring bad results. So this kind of simple delusion is not so bad in the worldly sense, but in the Dhamma sense, it is very gross. It is very gross to have the kind of delusion, not knowing that good deeds will bring good results, bad deeds will bring bad results. So the kind of defilement that arise in the mind is gross, and the kind of defilement that lay dormant or latent are refined form. But in the Dhamma field, even the refined form, even the latent or dormant form are blameworthy. So in the world, if one goes extreme with lobha and dosa, then one will not have any patience or forgiveness, so the surrounding will criticize him or her, because the person has the kind of things that are blameworthy. So the surrounding will not see him or her as good, because she has the kind of personality that is disgusting and unclean. And if one is keeping such bad things, she will be rude, gross, will be burning, and will be detestable. In Pali it is called kucita. Kucita means detestable or disgusting. It is detestable and disgusting because it can cause suffering and it can also cause rudeness and crudeness. So it is not pure, but it is blameworthy. So the state of being free from blame, from rudeness, from crudeness, in Pali it is called kusala. So if one is accepting the ordinary form of loba, dosa, moha, and also intensified form of loba, dosa, moha, which are disgusting, if one is accepting these defilements, whether ordinary form or gross form, then his or her mind will become inferior and she will be degraded. And if the person goes on to transgress by body and speech, it will be worse. So these latent or dormant form of defilement, they arise due to circumstances. So when these circumstances meet, these latent or dormant forms of defilement will go on to the form of transgression. So if the person has not uprooted these latent or dormant form of defilement, if one has not uprooted these defilements, then these defilements will stay in latent or dormant form, and it is called anusaya kilesa. So anusaya kilesa means latent or dormant form of defilement that lie in the person until it is uprooted by magga-jnana, by knowledge. So these anusaya kilesa, latent or dormant form of defilement, can only be uprooted with Ariya Magga, the path knowledge. So if one hasn't got Ariya Magga Jnana, path knowledge yet, then these defilements will lie latent and dormant in the person, and whenever there is opportunity, these defilements will become kind of transgression and so on. So in order to uproot these latent or dormant defilements, one needs to be mindful of whatever object that arises. By noting the presently arising object, then one will be developing Vipassana jnana. So with Vipassana jnana, one will see the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self. So if one has developed Vipassana jnana, then she is overcoming the defilements momentarily, the defilements that can arise by lack of mindfulness. So the defilements that can arise by lack of mindfulness will be overcome momentarily when the person is attaining Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge. So one is overcoming these defilements moment by moment with Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge, and these defilements will be totally uprooted when the person attains Ariya Magga jnana, path knowledge. So in order to uproot the defilement with past knowledge, one needs to be mindful of presently arising objects so that he/she will be developing Vipassana jnana and he/she will be suppressing the defilements moment by moment so that these defilements will become weaker and weaker. So when the defilements become weaker and weaker, when the person attains Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge, then finally when the person attains Magga jnana, the person can uproot these defilements to the point of no return. So there is an example of a boxing match. So when two components are boxing, then the boxer should avoid the forceful blow from the opponent. And at the same time, the boxer must always be seeking opportunity to give the opponent a forceful blow. So if the boxer is able to give the opponent a forceful blow, then the opponent will become weak. And if the boxer gives another forceful punch, then the opponent will become weaker. So when the boxer can give about 3 forceful blows, then the opponent is getting weak, that the blow coming from the opponent will not be as strong. So in that case, the boxer has more opportunity to give the opponent forceful blow. And finally, when the opponent is getting weaker and weaker, the boxer gives a final blow that will knock out the opponent. So the boxer becomes a winner. So in the same way, when you are giving forceful blow to the Kilesa defilement, it is not enough just to give one blow, but you need to repeatedly give forceful blow to your opponent's Kilesa defilement. Because throughout the samsara, one has been having wrong views such as permanent, good, and self. So in order to uproot these wrong views, one needs to give forceful blow repeatedly against the defilement. So one should be practicing, one should be mindful continuously on the presently arising object so that the Kilesa defilement will become weaker and weaker. So by gaining Vipassana jnana, by gaining insight knowledge, one is said to be overcoming the Kilesa defilement moment by moment. And finally, when the person attains Ariya Magga jnana, path knowledge, he/she can overcome these defilements, he/she can knock out the defilements so that the person becomes a winner. So when practicing Satipatthana meditation, which is high-class kind of work, one should not be practicing without any respect, and one should not be practicing without any, one should not be practicing without respect. So if one fails to practice respectfully, meticulously, and if the person is practicing in stop-and-go manner, if he/she is not practicing continuously, then it will be paṇḍitā, negligence, failure, or heedlessness. So in practicing Satipatthana meditation, one should be practicing respectfully, meticulously, continuously, carefully, so that one can overcome the defilement, one can knock out the defilement, so that the yogi will become a winner. So when one is associating with other people in a society, one should understand the benefit of other people. One should deal them with compassion and consideration. But when one is fighting with the opponent in order to gain victory, then one should not be lenient with the opponent. So when the yogi is in the battlefield fighting with the Kilesa defilement that has been following throughout the samsara, the Kilesa defilements which has been very firm throughout the samsara, one should not be lenient with the defilement. So one should be relentless with these Kilesa defilements, so that she can have victory over the Kilesa defilements. So when fighting with the Kilesa defilements in a battlefield, yogi cannot be lenient to these defilements. Yogi should be relentless to the Kilesa defilements. So an example is given. When a fire breaks out, the fire does not choose the fuel, such as this is very precious, this is valuable, this is not valuable. So the fire does not choose which fuel to be burnt. So when the fire breaks out, it burns down everything regardless of whether the fuel is precious, valuable or not. So the same goes in the practice. When the person is practicing Satipatthana meditation in order to fight the defilement which has been following throughout the samsara, the defilement which can destroy one's own reputation or virtue, so these pāpa or these inferior states of mind, which are the defilements, you should not have any leniency towards these defilements. So you should be relentless of these defilements which can ruin your reputation and virtue. So these defilements are disgusting, these defilements and unwholesomeness are disgusting, blameworthy, not pure or clean, but polluted, dirty, rude, gross and crude. So that's why it is called pāpa. Pāpa means the kind of wholesomeness, the kind of state that can make the person inferior. So the person who accepts these pāpa will be inferior. In another word, it can also be called maṅga. Maṅga means the unwholesome state which can make the person, whoever accepts them thinking of these unwholesomeness as good, So this unwholesomeness, Maṇḍa, can kill the person or kill his or her virtue. So when this Maṇḍa, unwholesome state, arises in the person, this person will be deprived of reputation or virtue. So when a person or a group indulges in defilements such as lobha or dosa, then they will be fighting among each other, they will be killing among each other. So when this happens, even though the person does not die, but his or her reputation or virtue will die. If the person does not observe 5 precepts, his or her reputation and virtue will die. If the person does not have control over his or her mind, if the person lets go the mind freely on sensual objects, then the person's reputation or virtue will die. If the person is not developing Vipassana jnana, she cannot develop path knowledge which can uproot the latent or dormant defilements. So not being able to uproot these latent or dormant defilements by Magga jnana, path knowledge, these defilements will be growing. So these defilements should be uprooted, they should be eradicated. If the person cannot eradicate these defilements, these unwholesome states, even though the person is living, but his or her reputation and virtue will die. So that's why it is called Maṇḍa. So these unwholesome states can make the person die or can make the person become inferior, and these states can also kill the reputation and virtue of the person. So these papa, these inferior states of mind, is following throughout the samsara. When a child is born, these papa has been following. And when the person comes of age also, these inferior states are following throughout his or her life, his or her round of existence. If the person does not reform or shape or mold the mind with systematic method, then these unwholesomeness stay in the person. They have been following throughout his or her life. So when meeting with desirable objects, if the person is unmindful, then gross form of unwholesomeness will arise. And when the person comes across undesirable objects, if the person is not mindful, then there will be anger, aversion, and so on. So when the person meets with good and bad objects, and if she is not mindful, then there will be defilements such as lobha and dosa. In Pali it is called nimittakaha. When the person sees good and bad objects, the person will take its sign. So just like when a person takes photo with a camera, then the image will go onto the film. So when the image is imprinted on the negative of the film, then one can develop the film, one can enlarge how many inches of photos you need. It can be printed into a large photo. So when the image is on this negative film, then one can enlarge however how large he, she wants the photo to be. So in the same way, when the person is thinking about desirable objects, then there will be greed. When the person is thinking about undesirable objects, there can be anger or hatred. So these defilements are becoming very firm in the mind. If you want to take off the pillar that is posted on the ground, one cannot take it off just like that, but one needs to loosen the pillar in order to pull it off. So in the same way, if one wants to pull off the Kilesas defilements, which has been following throughout the samsara, you cannot just take it off or pull it off all at once, but you need to make it loosen, just like you need to loosen the pillar that is posted in the ground. And after making the Kilesas defilement loosen, then you can pull it off. You can pull it off all the way through, all the way out. So in the same way, one needs to pull out the defilement. So gu, in the word gu means disgusting. Sala means pulling off, making it loosen and pulling off and destroying it. That's why kusala means the wholesomeness that can destroy, that can pull off the unwholesome states of mind. So when one is about to take photo, when the person is focusing the thing that he, she wants to take picture, when the light goes through, then the image is not printed on the negative film. If the image is not printed on the negative film, then the person cannot print photos. So in the same way, practicing Satipatthana meditation is kind of like the light passing through the negative so that the image will not be printed. So Satipatthana meditation can uproot the defilements in the same way that when light passes through, the image will not be printed on the negative film. So tomorrow Sayadaw will explain more. Sadhu.